Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Building Your Business right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My wonderful guest all the way from Australia is Krystal Hille, and she is a publisher that I'm actually going to be working with, or I'm working with, which is wonderful. She talks about hybrid books, publishing and a transformational book, coaching and training platform. So are you wanting to write a book? Are you wanting to write an anthology, which is a collaborative book? Do you want to have somebody that really represents who you are and what you're doing? Well, listen to the show and see if Krystal is a fit for you, because she specializes in guiding people who work in a higher consciousness to get their words out to the right audience. Higher consciousness, folks. So she talks about the soul and the spirit and that connection that we all need energetically, whatever else you'd like to call it. And this is the audience, and these are the people that she works with. She is the founder of Hill House Publishing, soul leadership coach, international #1 bestseller. She's passionate about gathering change makers and conscious creators who align with her mission to awaken, empower humanity into a deeper sovereignty and connection. She helps them step into their zone flow and claim the essence of their leadership, and makes them into international best-selling authors so that their passion can ignite global change and enhance their authority and reach. We all want that, don't you? I mean, a lot of people think, well, I don't know if there's a book in me, or I don't know if I did an anthology, what would that look like? And sometimes just listening to a show like this can put things in order for you to take that right step. Welcome to the show, Krystal.
Wow, thank you so much, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here.
And, I've worked with a lot of publishers and I've certainly interviewed a great deal. And for me, it was always that soul match. It had to be somebody that understood what I was doing. And we're working together on the Raising Our Gifted Children book series that's hopefully going to be out for Christmas. We're waiting for people to come in with all their contracts and chapters. But it's about raising that consciousness, that awareness. When we're aware, we then are more invited to know what we can do about it, and we can hear in a different frequency of what we can do about it. And having a publisher that works from that level, that understands that whether you're talking business or whether you are talking spirituality, it's about that higher elevation of consciousness, which awakens people into actually understanding their lives, life around them better, and what they're empowered to do, right?
Exactly. Because if we are out of alignment personally, then that will feed into our business, and that's why I don't believe cookie cutter approaches work for, where business coaches come and say, just do this and it'll be fine. What if I'm not aligned to that process? Or what if I have internal scripts that are preventing me from actually executing that effectively?
Yeah,
So,
very
yeah.
important. As I said, I've worked with a lot of people and they're great at what they do, but whom they're serving is a different demographic. Now, here with 18 different genres, I represent a whole load of topics and genres and style and people. The common denominator, are they coming from the heart? And what they are sharing, is it something that is serving humanity in order to grow into that higher consciousness? But a lot of people kind of get caught up in I've got to do business this way because everybody else is doing it that way. And we don't have to get caught up in that groove, do we?
No, we don't. And I used to get caught up in that as well, and it created so much anxiety and have to and when I just thought, no, it's all within me and it will come through me. And yes, of course, there are strategies that we can take on, but they have to be in alignment. They have to feel good. Because if it
Mm.
doesn't feel good, then our potential audience will read that, right? And it's almost like we're
Yes.
repelling them rather than attracting them in.
That is the point. We are all vibrational creatures. We all work on a
Yes.
frequency. When you speak from something that does come from the heart, soul, and spirit with the intent to illuminate and invite others, people will feel that. And they'll feel it in the words, they'll feel it in the tone of the way you write. And as you said, it can either repel them or it can be that invitation. But if it's not truly you, they can tell they're just generic words. AI could have written it, not you. And we want the essence of you behind the words.
Exactly. And whenever we're really writing from that place of truth, and when we're moved by our own story, when we're surprised by our
Mm,
own story, that's when we're taking the reader on that journey with us, and they're going to be moved and surprised, and they're finding those deeper aspects within them. That's what I love with my authors. I really guide them to go very deep into their story and really ask these why questions. Why do I do what I do? What
mm,
is that purpose? How am I here to serve? And then present it and write it in such a way that they're taking the reader on a transformational journey with them by connecting through the story and really taking the reader right into the heart of that story. And then also by reflecting on that story, like sharing the hindsight of what did I learn from this,
mhm.
and teasing out the universal theme that is then the bridge to the reader's heart and the reader's story. Because I always say, we don't read. I wouldn't, if you're writing a book, if you're writing a chapter, I don't read your story. I actually read my story through your lens.
Yes,
So
yes.
when we're aware of that, we
Mm,
write from that really deeper place of service.
mm. It's that relatability, isn't it? You could be talking to me, or this has happened to me, or I now understand. And, it doesn't have to be something that's exact, but in a good chapter or in a good book, there is always something that you could be telling my story, that relatability. And we want that kind of connection because it helps us to understand we're not alone. Somebody else is going through a similar story. And therefore, I'm more empowered to listen and learn how did they navigate it.
Exactly. And it's always like I said, the universe expresses itself through us, through every single one of us. And if there's people out there who are thinking, I know I maybe want to write a book, but my story isn't worth telling,
Hmm.
then, I really invite to reconsider because the universe expresses itself through all of us. And even if we haven't had the biggest nightmares as in our childhood, the biggest traumas, there's still something in the subtlety. I had a lady who came into the book and said, my story, I don't have a big story to share. I'm just a normal person.
Hmm.
And I said, well, do you still have challenges and fears? And she said,
Yes.
yeah, but they're not worth sharing compared to somebody else's, but it's still a fear. Who
Yeah.
are you to put yourself below somebody else
Yeah.
just because for some reason we say if it's not dramatic, it's not
Right.
important.
And those
And
dramatic stories are very, very important because they really do show the courage, the strength, the abilities, the what we can become. In other words, they are not the story of what happened to them. It is what they become because of that. And that is really illuminating. But never ever compare or undermine your own story because there are more people out there that have just gone through various bumps and scrapes but not the great Grand Canyons or the cosmic two by fours, as I call them. And those stories are just as important because there's somebody else traveling in that same frequency. And it's like, oh gosh, no, that my story doesn't matter. My story is similar to hers. It doesn't all have to be the crescendo, right? It's the everyday that people relate to.
exactly. And then it brings more importance to the everyday and the
Yeah.
subtleties in the everyday. It's like, oh, and then the realizations that come because it's so easy to just push it under the carpet. And it's like, oh no, that's not important. Other people have way bigger problems than me. Who am I to, to feel sorry for myself? And
Yeah.
and I just want to validate everybody's journey as important and significant.
And whether you're, you know, contributing a chapter to an anthology or whether you are writing your own book, both equally as important. You can most certainly call yourself a published author, even if it's just a chapter. And don't undermine your chapter. I mean, I've interviewed many, many, many people who have been part of that. And they've said, like, in the rereading of their own chapter of what they've learned. Because if you're writing organically in the moment, you're not writing like, I need to follow this structure, that structure. I'm always saying, let it out. Let it out. Just get it out there. How it can be reorganized or tidied up or padded up, that comes later, but just let it out. And in rereading it, it is like, oh, oh, I didn't know I felt that way, or I didn't know I see things that way. And so many people, again, have had responses to their chapter and go, I never would have looked at it that way had they not pointed it out. So your chapter is important, not just for you and your own self-discovery, but the discovery that other people will share with you, and it broadens that perspective.
Exactly, exactly. And I think the reason why we have not felt this way is because, if we're looking historically at publishing,
Mm-hmm.
it initially, the way we recorded stories in a written format was the pharaohs and the kings on the temple walls, with hieroglyphs and
Yes.
sharing the history and the legacy, leaving their legacy in that way. And then even when the printing press came in the 1600s, it was reserved for the clergy, the
Yeah.
philosophers, and the kings. And then it was the traditional publishers who had to give you permission to
Mm.
publish your book and deem it as important.
Yes.
And you had to have like 100,000 followers, or you had to have a message that was controversial enough to sell. So I think that's why we've been conditioned. It's not our fault that we don't think our
No.
story is worthy, because there's a massive history of
Mm.
centuries where it wasn't. But with the decentralization of everything, things are changing. And that's why
Yeah.
now we are coming together also through platforms like this, working together in cross Canada and on Australia to bring light to the everyday and the significance and magnificence in all of that.
To think that Little Women, a book that really transformed so many people, nearly didn't get published. And it was only because the publisher's children read it and said, I want more, I want more, I want more, that he goes, oh, I guess there is an audience from it. Because from his perspective as a man, right, didn't mean
Yes.
anything. But when his children, which were girls, read it, I'm hungry for it. And I don't know how many copies or redones of that, I mean, movies and everything else that's been made out of that story that transcends time because it's
Yes.
speaking about the resilience of a woman, what she goes through, and that strife and that family, that coming together, everything. And it's such an important story that nearly didn't get out there. And that, kind of begs to how many other stories out there that never made it because somebody read it from their own perspective and didn't pass it out and say, well, what's your opinion on it? And listen to who the reader really is. Now with self-publishing or finding small publishers that like yourself who are targeting people on who they really are that's writing. And it's not, yes, it's about the content, but only if the content represents who they really are and what they're really trying to say. It isn't kind of that generic publishing anymore, where, it feels such a distance between the publisher and the author that you feel that there isn't any connection. And if they don't get it, nah, it's not going to go out. And yeah, they've forced the change. They have forced the change. But in a way, it's really good because it's really liberated those voices out there that we need to hear.
Exactly. Exactly.
Now, in our book, the Forgotten Children series, it is about our forgotten children. Our children are how we're letting them down. We're letting them down, from our societal perspective, we're letting them down from the conformity that we demand from them, the fact that we don't listen. We're not learning from our children. We're dictating to them. And so, I've gathered a load of people that are very diverse in what they're bringing to the chapters. So that you're not going to read this like a chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 and the ending, and it's all going to be the same. Each one is bringing their passion and their perspective from where they're at of what they're doing with children, from years of teaching or autism or foster care, so many different levels here. And each story stands alone. But I think it's so important for us to look at these anthology books, these collaborative books, as that individual story, and they kind of build on each other. The importance of whatever the message is that's getting out, those different flavors. It's like going to the ice cream shop and you can have vanilla all the time, but you can try chocolate and cherry and this and that each chapter, right? And it's all ice cream. It's just different flavors.
Exactly. And that's what we need. We need the diversity and the
Mm,
oneness. And when I used to run Women's Circle, I would always have like a crystal, and I would say, it's there's six sides here,
Mm,
and you can see something here, and there might be some shades that I can't see from my side.
yes.
So I actually have to physically get up and move around in order to see that. So each perspective is
Mm,
so valid, and it's part of the whole, right? So when we can bring all these different stories together, as you were sharing, around
mm.
childhood and education, how we treat our children, it's it's enriching, right? And that's what I really love to see.
And you kind of got to know why you want to put it out in the first place. It's what is the ultimate goal? And of course, the ultimate goal for me in this platform is to bring awareness. We're so caught up in the pattern that we're repeating the pattern without actually understanding the damage. And if we
Yeah,
can bring about that awareness and how it needs to change and what we can do to bring about the change, we're empowering the readers to actually look at something differently and be a part of that change that's necessary. But we do need to know if you've got a group of people that want to come together in participating in a book, there has to be, it doesn't matter what their chapter is per se as individual, but there has to be a common goal, right? A common agenda.
exactly. Yes. Yeah, it's always the common theme. And
Mm,
sometimes what I find in books is that the individual authors go down their personal stories to such a degree that I have to bring them back and say, now weave the theme of the book in it, so we can
yes.
all kind of, that glues it all together. And it's not that they don't share their story, but this that they share their story through the lens of the theme of the
Mm,
book.
yes. Yes, and that's important because it's rather like I've got all these 18 genres. I have 3,000 shows. How do you know which one to listen to? Well, you're going to go to the genre of I
Yeah.
want to listen to something about that. So that's the same with a book. Oh, this is an interesting topic, right? And I'm going to buy this book based on what that topic is, what that interest is. And then with that in mind, I'm now going to devour all those chapters from,
Mm.
from under that umbrella. And really what it's doing is like, forget about six sides. It's opening up all the different sides, like a complete crystal
No.
opening up
Yes.
of all these different sides. And I think one of the beautiful gifts that book does is it stays with you and relives with you all the time and comes back. A good book always will come out. I read that or in this chapter, or so and so wrote this and it stayed with me. But it's the beauty of the invitation to conversation.
Exactly. And when we write it from that place, and this is something it's very important to me, and I look for and I train my authors in, it's like, how do we have a conversation with the reader in our book? So it's not just, okay, I'm just going to share my story. Me, 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 me. No, we want the story, we want the reflection on the story, and we want the audience engagement, the reader's engagement by even asking them rhetorical questions or inviting them to come on a journey with us.
Mm.
And that's what's creating the enrichment, the inspiration, and the potential for transformation.
Now, you love to do these anthology collective books, but you also work one-on-one with authors in their own book, right?
That's right. Yes. Yes.
Now, you don't necessarily work in fiction.
I haven't dived into fiction yet. No, I don't think that's something where I would be able to support somebody
Mm.
well. But I do, it's the coaches and the healers and the wellness practitioners, anybody who's here to make a difference, who have a book in them and they want to share that. It's a transformational book.
Yeah,
So it shares a little bit about their journey. Like it's an educational memoir. That's sort of
yeah.
the genre. Sharing the story, sharing some teaching tools or some systems, some processes for the reader to do. And I do have a solo book incubator as well, where I take people on a 6-month journey to help them outline their book and all the chapters, and then give them the accountability and the community and the
Mm.
feedback to help them keep going to actually completing that book. Because I think that's probably one of the biggest reason why there is like 80% of the population think that they have a book inside of them, but I think it's only 3% ever finish a manuscript. And I
Right.
think the reason why there's so few is simply because alone we can get stuck in our own head and we listen to our negative self-talk, but in community we can release all of that and move through that a lot easier. So that's why I've created that container.
You need that, folks. I've just written mine, and although my brother, who is a professional writer and well, taught master's degree at that level, has been helping me, and my son-in-law, who's an engineer, funny enough, and it's a totally different perspective of putting it in order. It's daunting. The actual writing of it, it just came out. Now organizing the chapters, because haven't written it now. This happened to me, chapter this happened to me. It's kind of maybe take different countries or different time periods, but it's that organization of putting things into place. And then, somebody, but did you put this in the book? Or did you put that in the book? And you think, where should I put it? Should I add it? Should I leave it out? And all of these shoulds. And it can be overwhelming. So you do need someone to help you along this journey, because then it doesn't become so overwhelming that you're going to go, oh no, too much, I just can't do it.
Exactly, exactly. And sometimes, I mean, people are different, right? And there's no, again, here's no cookie cutter approach either. Some people just like writing, as long as they have their main idea and they start writing, that works for them. And then the organization of it comes later.
Mm.
I think that could potentially be a little bit more overwhelming because suddenly you have all of your writing. Whereas if you're starting with a clear outline and you kind of like an architect, you kind of start with the drawings of what it will look like, and you create the outline and the framework. And then that all happens in the mind, with the mental abilities. And then you put that to the side and say, right, now I'm just going to write. I know what I want to write. And then you get yourself into that creative flow, connecting with your higher guidance, your higher self, or whatever you want to call it, the muse, and you just let it pour through onto the paper, as you earlier said. And after that, we can go back and compare it. We look at our structure. We look at this beautiful piece of raw writing, that stream of consciousness writing that's just come through, and then we kind of put it into place and cut and paste and move things around if needed.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of things nowadays. Cut and paste and rearrange, right? That's the beauty
Yeah,
of it.
that's it.
But, don't be intimidated. I mean, when I announced I was writing my book, which actually came about from people asking me, Sarah, where's your story? You're interviewing everybody on their books. Where's your story? And I thought, okay, all right. Kind of lived a peculiar life, but okay, I'll get it out there. And this time last year, I just took 3 weeks off and let it out. But it's taken a year. And I must admit, I've not been working at it full time, because full time podcasting, that I haven't had a great deal of time to do it. And I'm one of these people that no, this day is designated for this, because when I get into the groove, I'm in the groove, and that's where I need to be and not have distractions. But it isn't an easy job when you're doing it on your own. And you do need somebody that can kind of go, this is better suited here, or maybe you can bring this out more. Let's tone this one down a little bit. And it just makes it cohesive. And I think that is really something that's very important. The other thing is, do not compare yourself to somebody else's book, please. That's their story. This is your story. Don't compete with anyone else, and don't write it to make a lot of money. You're writing it to share your story that's going to be inspiring to other people.
Exactly. Like a lot of people think that they're going to make a lot of money from it. Oh, I'm going to get my
J.K.
passive
Rowling,
income
right?
from this
Yeah.
book. Yes. And yeah, it happens to less than 1% of people. And yes, it does happen, but it's not the norm. We don't
No.
write a book to make money. We write a book for the authority it'll give us, for the doors it will open, for the speaking engagement it'll give us, for the content that we can then put into an online program.
Yes.
For there's so much, for also the clarity that it will give us about our own life and how we present ourselves as a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many ways that personal transformation, recognizing that when I'm writing my story and I really reflect, sometimes there's this thing of, wow, I've come a long way,
Yes.
and
Yes.
just to sit, to pause for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's writing is almost that pause that allows us to reflect and see where we're at on our life's journey. Other times, authors have been surprised at shame that would bubble to the surface, or trauma that they thought they had dealt with, but there was just another layer that then revealed itself to be released. And
Yes.
so then again, they come out feeling a lot clearer, a lot calmer, a lot more confident. And that will help again, just bring more people in that will then give them the money that they can make.
Yes, exactly. So, you're very much representing the transformers, the
Yeah.
health, mind, body, heart, and soul transformers, the change makers in putting their story out there. And then for someone who reads their book or their chapter, whatever the platform is, and then goes, okay, I really see this person, I hear this person, I want to know more about them. And then it's like, they do X, Y, and Z. And I already know who they are, the essence who they are. I now want to have their services. So just like podcasting, I always say is that introduction to who you are, why you are doing what you're doing. It's also the same with having that book where people can really get to know you. And in a world where we are saturated with things thrown at us, left, right, and center, one of the big things that you need to do for yourself is take the time to learn. Either listen, learn, and apply, or read, learn, and apply, right? Or both, because if you take the time to absorb the knowledge, the content, the context in which it is written, it will give you more answers than you just reading the headlines and then going, yeah, 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 but what if, what if, what if?
Exactly. And the other thing, the flip side of that is that we need to put more out than we take in.
Yes.
Otherwise, we forever feel like overwhelmed, like
Mm.
information overload. And yeah, as you said, it's that take it and apply it.
Yes.
And then by the applying of it, you then putting out again.
Yeah.
So I know I feel a lot more calm and centered when I focus on who I am and what I'm here to share than looking out there at everybody else, what
Yes.
they're doing and taking that in and thinking, oh my God, like I feel like I'm running a race and I have to catch up with everybody. But no, I just have to be me and catch up with myself or go at my own pace. And
Yes.
everybody else can do what they're doing. And by taking those moments to reflect and write and maybe even journal, I think it just helps us as entrepreneurs to stay in our lane and amplify our lane as well.
Right. I mean, I've done that with my book, is that I'm a blogger. And so I found things that I blogged about spoke so much in the moment about what I wanted to say. I incorporated it in the book. Why rewrite? Reorganize, but why rewrite? Because it's already there. It's just, refine it, for it to fit in the book. And it's like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. If you look at your journal, if you look at your blogging, if you look at other things that you've done, you already have put it down. And it's now, how do you elaborate on that and bring it together?
Exactly. Yes.
Now, a lot of people are doing what I call faction books. They're taking the facts of the story, but they're fictionalizing it in a story type thing. I've interviewed a lot of people who have done this, and they felt more comfortable in making it a fictional character about a truth of what they've gone through. What do you feel about that?
I think it's a really good idea when there are things in our lives that we can't talk about without legal consequences.
Right. Yes.
When there has been abuse, sexual violence, sexual abuse, domestic violence, those really, themes where we feel like we need to share it. But if we do, there could be a defamation of character suit
Yes.
coming our way.
Yes. Yes.
Even if it's the truth and it's our truth and we make, we demonstrate or share it's our truth. Yeah, we just have to legally, unfortunately, still protect ourselves to a degree, and it's not worth, um, going through the consequences just because we need to share our truth. So I think in those cases, fictionalizing a story can be important. Having said that, those type of stories, it's always about the intention of why, isn't it? Why are you writing it? Are you writing it in order to educate an audience, in order to help others so that they don't have to go through what you went through? You're writing it to share the wisdom of hindsight, and that's the main
Yes.
objective. Or are you writing a story in order to build a business and bring people into your life? And if that's the case, then fictionalizing your facts and your
Mm.
story is not going to serve you.
Right.
So and then you'll have to find another way to make it work and
Right.
by alluding
And
to
you,
things.
you hit on something very important. Like in my book, I have given the name to the people that have supported me and helped me along the way because I celebrate them. Anybody that hurt me, I refer to them as them, not with a name. A, protection, but also for me, I don't want to give the that energy of being mentioned, right? They've done what they've done, and I have become what I've become despite that. So it is obviously the journey of what I've been through. But I think one thing you have to be careful, and people, especially in North America, the tell-all book, the juiciness, naming names. No, you don't want that, folks, because it actually reflects worse on you. Right now, you can speak to your experience, you can speak to what it did to you, you can speak to the trauma, and you can refer to the person, but don't refer to the name of the person. Because if you're writing a revenge book, I promise you it's going to hurt you more in the end than it's going to hurt them.
Exactly. It's always about the perspective with which we share our story. And revenge that belongs in a journal. You just
Yes,
need to get it out of your system.
yes,
Doesn't belong in a book.
no.
You know,
It can make people
the
feel
hindsight.
uncomfortable, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And the
And so it's a
hindsight.
really fine line. And it happens, and sometimes that I get a first draft from somebody where they've literally just laid it all out and say, okay, now let's shift the perspective from your perspective and your sharing to the reader's perspective. What is in it for them? And then we rewrite, and so it serves the reader, because a book has to serve the reader.
Yes. And yes, please, whatever. I mean, I've told stories here. I've done podcasts here of people with things that have happened to them should never happen to another human being, and they're here to share that. And it's not to sensationalize what has happened to them. It's to show whom they have become today, despite what happened to them, because they were willing to go through the process and take the journey. And they can talk about it as a platform of, this is what was done to me, this is where I was, but this is who I am today. And that's where the empowerment lays. So yes, don't try and hide or sugarcoat what has happened to you, because it's what's made you who you are today. But share the journey of how you recovered, or the resilience, or the strength, or the courage, or the abilities that you learned from it, because that's where the empowerment is.
Yes, and that's what makes it universal as well. That's what
Yeah,
makes it applicable to the reader, because they can identify those stages perhaps in their own lives as well.
yeah. You'll
Yeah.
actually find your practitioners, your healers, or your coaches, the best ones of those that have gone through something,
Oh, yes.
because
Yeah.
that they're coming from a place where you get it, you understand where I am. You don't want to work with a healer of any kind who has never gone through anything, because how do they relate? Now, it doesn't mean everybody has to go through something catastrophic. It could be just simply uncomfortable, or working in an industry where they've observed it a lot,
Mm.
right? But it's that relatability. Do you get what I'm telling you? And if it's just people that have kind of, school to school to practice, very often they haven't had the life experience, which is just nectar. It's just the abundance of our life. When they've had that experience, then we feel safe with them because they understand what it is we're going through, right?
Yeah, and there's an embodiment
Mm,
in their being that is felt by, the client or the people. It's like, yes, you have there's a knowing. You can tell when somebody's done their work. You can tell when somebody's no longer getting triggered. You can tell when
yeah.
they have that just ability to be compassionate for anything that happens with and meet it without judgment.
Yes. And when people can look back on their story and tell it without any of the pain, without any of the sorrow, it is just what happened, but it's no longer a part of me. That is when you truly know you're liberated, right? Because
Yes.
you're no longer a part of that. And that is what resonates with the reader.
Exactly. And you don't have to be there at the moment, at the beginning of writing your book. It
Yes.
just means that the writing of the book becomes the healing journey through
Yeah.
that, or another layer of the transformation, where, as I said initially, the first draft might just be the sharing of that really raw story from from the I perspective,
Hmm.
and all of the fears, and maybe there is still some anger that needs to be released, and that can come into the writing, and that will make powerful writing,
Yeah.
but it may not necessarily make it into the book, or if so, it may make it into the book as a snippet in time, to
Yes.
capture a snippet in time, like in quotation marks, rather than as you now.
Yes, exactly. I know that, when I first said I was going to write the book, oh, the juices of all the pain and suffering you've been through. And I went, no, I will most certainly be referring to things that have happened in my life. But it is more to do with who have I become because of it, right? It's more
Yes,
that journey, because isn't that the journey we're all on? Something in the nobody gets through life without something, whether it's a
that's
pothole or a
right.
Grand Canyon. We all go through something, and it's how we got through it, how we stood back up again, how we faced it, who we have become today because of it. And I think that is really what the true test of our life's journey is about. That wonderful experience, as Trevor Noah said, you may not enjoy the experience. Not all experiences are enjoyable, but who you have become because of it is something you can enjoy. Right. And I think that is what life is all about. And that's why we want to read these stories. We want to hear these stories because it goes, well, how did you get through it? Or am I alone? Or is there somebody else that's gone through this as well? Oh my goodness, I didn't know people actually did go through that. And look at who they are
Exactly.
today. And it broadened. One of the problems that we have with humanity is that we've put blinkers on. And this is part again why the book Forgotten Children is coming up, is because once we take them to school, we insist that they fit into a box. And we stop that beautiful wonderment of exploration and we dictate what it is they need to know. Then, as human beings, we wonder why they are not explorers or they don't have a broader perspective on life, is because everything has been, no, one foot in front of the other, keep going linear, and we're not linear creatures. So when we hear somebody, this has happened to them, left field or right field, and they stepped out of that box. Not everybody has a sad story to tell, but maybe they have a triumph to share, right? Then it's like, oh gosh, there is no box, there aren't any restraints, I can stretch out and explore, and it becomes that invitation.
Yes, exactly. So there's either, oh my God, I didn't realize I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
And there's, oh my God, I didn't realize I could do that.
Yes,
You know, it's
yes.
both sides, and that it just expands us as humans and who we are. And that's so exciting. So who are you not to share your story is always what I say.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Now I'm going to ask you a question. I was exploring, who to do this book with because I have had some bad experiences in the past, and it was very important that I had somebody who understood why I'm doing what I'm doing. And our next book after this is going to be a business book with the business coaches and all their chapters. This one is more the philanthropic book where we're going to be fundraising for it and the money from the book goes back into the people's organizations to support them. So this is a supportive book. But why did you agree to actually do this book with me?
Look, I just felt such a connection to you, and I really connected to your mission and what you stand for, and that it's just connected on that value and like really deep the highest values is like, yes, we are here to make a difference to
Yes.
humanity. And that was the connection, and I just saw a kindred spirit in you as doing the same thing.
Yes, and what I saw in you was that kindred spirit. She gets it. She gets what I'm doing.
Yes,
And that although money has to be involved, which we'll be fundraising for, folks, so please come and support, that it isn't about the money. It's about the enrichment and the abundance of knowledge that is going to be shared. The making of
yes.
the money will come in the next book, but this one is about that enrichment that needed to go out there and having somebody who understood that. And it wasn't all about the bottom line. Yes, funding in order to grease the wheels to make it happen, absolutely, but not about, oh, how much money can I make from her and how many people can I get on board? And I like that integrity of you and that
Mm.
authenticity of you because we're both in it for the same reason. It's about the message that goes out in the books.
Yes. And look, me having children myself, and I've just
Mm.
like two months ago, I took my 12-year-old son out of high school because he just didn't fit in and he
Yeah.
didn't fit into the box. And then I had to look out for things. Okay, how can I support him? How can I support his passions while still giving him that education that he needs? So I resonated with that theme as well. And
Mm.
I don't like boxing people in. I'm
Yeah.
very much about sovereignty and
Yes.
freedom. And so this really speaks to me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been speaking to me for quite a few years, and then finally this year was finally to get it going. And as I pointed out the other day, kind of getting authors to kind of come in with their contracts and their stuff is like herding cats, because it sometimes is and of course we hit it at the wrong time, summer, so people are on holiday and this and that. And also I found out that people, because I had interviewed these people before, but some of them go back a ways because it's 10 years of my own network to find out they've retired and they're no longer there. And it's like, oh, shucks, So, but I have ended up with three other new people that have just ended up being absolutely wonderful, that are still very much immersed in this. So you're going to have a very diverse crowd in here, but each one of them is coming from clearly the passion for children, the passion for that liberty of our children and the essence of our children being kept and nurtured so they can grow into what they're meant to be. And that is what's so absolutely wonderful. And I'm really excited because these are going to be very diverse chapters. There isn't like everybody's going to be droning the same. They're all going to have different voices. But it's like that choir where there's a lot of solos in there, that
Yes.
it's going to be
Yeah.
exciting. And I think that is one of the beautiful things about doing a collaborative book, is that it is like a choir. You're all singing the same song, but each voice is bringing a different tone into it, which, different voice into it, which can really enhance the entire choir.
I've actually as we were speaking, thought of three more people that I have to introduce you to that may be perfect for the book.
Perfect, because we're still a few people short. But yes,
Amazing.
but it's interesting because when I've talked about it during a podcast, I want to be a part of that. And then I look at
Yeah,
my
I'm sure this will
background.
happen, right?
Oh
And
yes,
suddenly we'll have a
yes,
lot of people who want to
yes,
be in it, and that will be
exactly. And
fantastic.
we'll just have to put our foot to the pedal because I want it out for Christmas. But it will be when it's
We
going to
will.
be. I just hope it can be. But that's one thing I've had to learn. And this is something, folks, please understand. Best intentions. I'm going to write this and it's going to be out by this time and that. And then you run into, no, it's a rewrite, or this has to be done, or that has to be done. No, it can't be out at that time. Please do not get married to the time frame of when you want it to be out. Understand it is a process. And sometimes you simply have to take a step back and look at it from a different angle and come back and revisit what it is you've written, or what it is you really want to say. But you hear about the people who wrote the book in the weekend and it's out by next week. It's a it's a different platform, a different thing with this. When you're coming from the heart and soul of please tune in and let it come out on its own time. Do not dictate, allow.
Exactly. Yes, when we write by numbers or by formula and we have then yes, it can happen in a weekend.
Yeah.
Sometimes life, we haven't had a certain experience yet. I've seen this with over and over again. I had a beautiful lady in one of my books, Katerina, and she had a writer's block. She said, I don't know, I just can't write
Mm.
anymore. Like it's just not coming. And she's this beautiful healer, highly in tuned. And so she just took herself out for a coffee, had an amazing experience. And
Mm.
then that experience was the exact example that
Yes.
she needed in her chapter.
Right.
And so that experience made it into the book and into her chapter, and it was beautiful. So sometimes we need to live life, and we
Yes.
haven't had a certain experience that needs to be incorporated. But I guess at the same time, some people who really know their methodology, they're very solid, and they just haven't written it. Like maybe if
Yeah.
their book is 5 years overdue and they just need to write it, so they have it all in within them, and it just comes streaming through and out. That can happen too. I
Yeah.
think there's different ways, but you're absolutely right. The book has its own life, its
Yes.
own timeline,
Yeah.
and we will do our best to keep it within, get it out before Christmas. It's absolutely possible. But it's also for the authors to prioritize it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
we're all so busy and life gets in the way. Take that weekend, make that weekend up for the book.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
know I've written chapters in a weekend,
Oh yeah.
easy.
Oh no, some of them have already said, you inspired me so much. I went and went and just it's written. It's come out. And it's now just a
Yes.
question of kind of bringing the people together and all of that. So it's just right now is that the people that have agreed to it are really into it for the right reason. It's just the coordination of time, of getting everything together. And that's again, it's like the more you kind of push people, you can push them away. Everybody's got stuff going on. And so it's just, then giving them, okay, by this date, I would like to have X, Y, and Z. And that gives them something to plan for, but don't pounce it
Yes.
on them. And I think, it's again, I thought my book was finished. And then my son-in-law says to me, um, have you written this? Have you written that? And he started um, using his phone to ask me questions while we're out with the kids in a huge big fair that's going on, and then transcribed it for me, the answer, because he wanted me to. And it's like I address things that I hadn't put in the book that really needed to be in the book. So I asked my kids, ask questions, ask me questions, because then I
Mm.
can address it. Because sometimes you need that. It was my daughter said, you haven't written enough about dad, in a sense, like what he did to you. And I said, no, this isn't about a bashing. It's what happened. But no, you've been way too kind, Mum. So, I thought, okay, maybe I get a little tougher, but it's not about that. But it's interesting when you allow people who know what you're doing to ask you the questions because ah, ah, and that's something you need to have because it just broadens
Yes,
everything, doesn't it?
it does. And it brings also shows you what the reader may want to hear.
Exactly, exactly, which is very, very important. There's something else that people have to understand as well. When you've written the book, this is all I've written. I can sit back and rest on my laurels now. Now you have got to do all the publishing, which I interview so many authors, folks. They're on the author's kiss. Many authors are there, or depending if it's the genre is about something in particular, then it'll be under that. But the book has been written for a reason. It isn't for you to just think now it's going to be #1 bestseller because it's on Amazon. No, it is now you have to get out there amongst all that other noise out there and find those podcasts and those places that are right for you to be on. Don't just go on a podcast for the sake of it. Does that person represent anything of what you've written? And is it the right platform? Right.
Yeah, is the audience going to
Yes,
want to hear what you have to say? Yes.
yes. Because, if you're on one particular platform and they're all about that and you're about this, you are talking gibberish to them. They're just not going to get it. So no, this is where maybe get a good publicist and somebody that really knows you and what it is you're trying to say and knows where you need to go, right? And for at least 6 months, you've got to be out there promoting your book, right? And no, it's not about bragging. It's about why you've written it. Whom is it
Yes.
for? What are you trying to say that's going to help other people? And that's really where it's at. So there's a lot of work to be done once the book comes out.
Absolutely. And again, in our containers, we always share ways in which people can do that and point them in the right direction. So it's yeah, it's a focus, right? It's not, it doesn't have to be hard work. And I just
Right.
want to make that clear. Like, us talking right now, sharing our ideas and our journey is fun. This is
Yes.
not hard work, right? But
Right.
it's yeah, it's just doing a little bit here and there to ensure that it gets out there. And as you said, it's about the vision, the mission of why you have
Right.
written the book, because that's what people connect with. So it's always that from coming from that heart of service. This
Yes.
is who I, and then people will introduce you to the
Mm.
right audiences as well.
Yes. Referral, referral, share, share. I'm always talking
Yes.
about podcasts. There's book clubs, podcast parties, everybody listening to the same podcast over the same book, read the book, then come together and share those different perspectives because then that just broadens it out even more. Now, somebody says, like, I want to be an anthology, but I really wouldn't know how to gather people to do that. Do you have people already that are looking for people to participate, or do people have to come together with whom they're going to have in the book for you to be able to do the book? What's your process?
So there's different approaches. So if somebody like you comes to me and says, look, I want to bring my community, I want to create a collaborative book with my community, then we say, yes, we can do that. And then we might even build a sales page for them. Or in your case, you did it all independently. And yes, and you gather the people, we kind of in the background, kind of supporting you, because sometimes you don't know how to do it, right? And
Right.
then we also can advertise it on our page, and then we'll take that group through a process. Or we as Hill House Publishing also always have a collaborative book open for enrollments that if you're an individual, you can come into those as well.
Oh, wonderful. So you don't necessarily have to gather the whole people to come and do it. You have ongoing books on different genres that they
Yes.
could fit into. So it
Yeah,
really is all
exactly.
about that chapter. And I think for a lot of people that kind of are dipping into the writing, being part of a chapter in a book, two or three books, it's really, really good for your business because it's like a spider's web goes out
Mhm.
so many far. But it also then becomes that, you know what, now there's a whole book in me. I'm ready to write it.
And you already have 3 chapters then that you can
Yeah,
integrate into that book. And yeah, I
exactly.
mean, the thing about the collaborative books that I really love is the collaboration
Hmm.
and the broadening of the network, the friendships that are being made, the business collaborations that happen out of those. Um, and it's all an enrichment and a growth. So yes, I know that some people say, "Oh, but I'm just a co-author." You know, what
Yeah.
is that? It's like, no, yes, you are a co-author, but you're still an author of your chapter, and you've put a lot of work and
Yes.
energy into that. You've had a transformation, you've up-leveled, you're now able to tap into the networks of all of your co-authors. And then, yes, then using that momentum, using the platform that you've built from the multi-author books, you can then write your solo book.
Yeah, exactly. And but it's really important as you talked about that community, that book becomes a
Mm,
community. And it's
yeah.
not just about promoting your chapter, it's about promoting the other authors' chapters as well. And kind of creating a platform. Many people create Facebook groups just for the book and all the other
Yes.
authors in there. And it's about supporting one another. And then, everybody, and it's not, I've just written a chapter, I'm on to my next thing. No, it's about understanding of the nurturing of that chapter in the book of the collective. So it's nurturing the collective, which is important.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually launching a book at the day of the recording today. And what I noticed one of the authors was doing, he was sharing um everybody else's posts and really featuring the core authors. And what that did for me as somebody watching that was like, wow, he's such a generous person. I would
Yes,
want to work with him.
right.
He didn't even talk about himself that much, but by sharing the others, by celebrating other people, it showed who he was as a person and the generosity. And when I was in my first multi-author book, it really helped me. Something clicked inside of me that eradicated competition
Yes.
and really taught me the importance of community and collaboration, how
Yeah.
good that feels when everyone's championing each other.
Yeah. And
So
that is really
powerful.
what we're meant to do as a human race. So,
Yes,
that
exactly.
as these books are kind of showing that beautiful collaboration, a kind of a brother sisterhood of everybody that was part of the book for a reason. And that book as a whole means so much, not only to them, but to all the readers. It's just that beautiful ripple effect that keeps going out. And it's sometimes you on just your own book may not have the same ripple effect, but being part of a collaboration it is a perfect platform because when you do your own book, you reach out to your community again. This is now my book, and they're already a part of your community, and they're so happy to share it. And that's the important thing. So somebody says, "Okay, all right, I want to do this. I want to be a part of a chapter. I'm in the same business. Soul health, mind, body, spirit business, and I want to be a part of it. How do they reach out to you? What is the first process that they do?
So they can go to my website, hillhousepublishing.com, and on there we've always have the latest books and offers that are there. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook primarily. So it's simply Krystal Hille, my name, and I'll come up. So it's just reaching out. Let's have a chat. Let's connect. Let's see if there's an alignment. Let's see if what I have to offer fits in with your vision for your life and your next steps in your business.
Right.
I'm not about selling. I'm all about alignment. So
Yes.
I'd love to have a conversation with anybody who's curious.
Mm. And you might just want to dip your toe in right now and just feel, is it a platform for me? Are you two right for each other? What does it entail? And it may not happen straight away, but the seed has been planted. I mean, if you know what's expected of you, it takes a lot of but what if off your shoulders. And you have that clarity. Ah, this is what's expected of me. I can do that.
Exactly.
And of
Exactly.
course, your name, Krystal, is spelled with a K. So it's KRYSTALHILLE.org. So people can find you there, and they can find you on LinkedIn, on Krystal Hille, on Facebook, Krystal Hille, and of course, Krystal Hille at krystalhille.com, and also on Twitter. And of course, they can see all this other platform that you've got going on here. I need glasses for this because I didn't enlarge it. You've got the 3-minute Igniter Author Archetype Quiz, which is great. You've got to find out about your compilation books open to enrollment, find about your solo book incubator, and also find out about publishing package for finished manuscripts. So these are all different links here, folks. All you have to do is selfdiscoverywisdom.com and put in Krystal Hille, Krystal Hille, Hille, and everything will come up. All the books that she has done, all the platform that you can reach out to her and just find out more about whether you want to be a part of it. I'm delighted that we have connected because I know that while I'm gathering, I know I can then hand it over to Krystal to make sense of all of that and work with, what needs to be refined because I'm very good at gathering the people and then promoting them. But this other stuff, no. This is her
Yeah, that's
forte.
where my magic
That's
comes in.
that,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's, to understand, who it is that that you're part of this umbrella and where you can pass it off and know in trust that they're going to do what you need to have done and it's going to work. So that's really, really important. I know that, as I said, I've worked with publishers and I've had bad experiences. I've interviewed them and I thought they're great for what they do. But for me, it was about finding somebody who got it, who comes from the heart, who is ignited by the soul, has got a great spirit, and can hear you and represent you on your path. So if you fit into any of this category, your spiritual coaching, your health coaching, your soul coaching, archetypes, all of that type of stuff, this is the publisher for you because she understands what it is you are trying to get out and to whom you are trying to get it out to, and how it can represent you authentically in a way that is your love and light. And that's extremely important, folks. Trust me, being down the other road, it didn't work. So having somebody that connects with you and they're both on the same page, take a huge big burden off your shoulder for sure. So thank you so much for doing the show with me, for aligning with me, because I know I kind of threw a spanner in your works of doing something different, but at the same time you understood why. And there's the why that we connected. And I think it's going to be very exciting, this book. And we have got many more books to come because I'm hoping to get 2 books out a year. So, this first one is a great navigation for us. And the second one will do even better and better and better. And that's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I am just so excited and honored to have met you as well. And I can't wait to see what magic we can co-create together.
And yes, folks, if you are in North America, yes, she's in Australia. Yes, it's going to be a different time difference. You just, make your appointments to connect later in the day instead of early in the morning. And that's, it no biggie. Now, just so she's in Australia, how can she serve me? She can serve you anywhere you are in the world. It's just a question of understanding the time change and making an appointment. Don't make it
That's
complicated.
exactly right. And I can help you get international, a bestseller in Australia.
Yes, exactly. And
Yeah, because
and
I've got
please do not
connections
think
here.
that you only need to serve people in your area or your country. If you've certainly got a program or your book that draws in the world, this is wonderful to have somebody who is a world representative.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Remember, Krystal Hille, Hill, HILLE.org, krystalhille.org. Reach out, look at it. All the publishing thing is there. Come back to the page where you can see everything, whatever you're interested in, collaborative, doing your own book. You've got something you want to say. Has she got a book going right now that you can be a part of? Reach out, have a conversation. I promise you will not regret it. So thank you, Krystal. And to
Thank you so
everyone
much.
else out there, please, we want to hear your story. We really do want to hear your story. We want you to contribute and be a part of that solution for somebody who is on a similar journey. You don't know how empowering you can be for someone else. So please write that story, share it. It is important. Until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tab at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.